So I have to put this on. I have to share a disclaimer with you, and I'm fully aware that most people will never read the disclaimer, but it's really important. Now, we're dealing with crypto, which is obviously one of the most volatile, one of the most high risk assets that you can invest in. And what I don't want you to do is come onto this webinar, learn a load of things about crypto and Bitcoin, and have this new perception where you think, actually, this is potentially an asset class that I want to be involved in. I'm just going to go and buy everything because I'm excited, or I heard Lee mention something on his social media and I'm just going to copy it. Don't do that. If you can just take this as educational content, but apply it in a way where you're not reliant solely on me, that you're going to be able to go out and do your own kind of research. Now, I don't mean that as a cop-out phrase. If you don't know how to do your own research, then don't worry. That's why you learn. But I'm just going to give you the other side of the story about crypto that the media have been hiding from you for a long time. And you know that they've been doing this because they've probably convinced you to stay away from it. They've probably told you that crypto's bad and it's used by the bad people. And at the same time, they've been quietly buying it up in a way where they have a massive proportion of the supply. And now they've even figured out a way of selling it to you, even though they told you to stay away. So it's clear it's going nowhere. So we're going to work our way through this. So who am I then? I'll keep this short and sweet, but just so you know who you're talking to and hear a little bit about me. I'm Lee Markham, and I teach crypto on a full-time basis. I've been doing it now for the past 4 years of teaching crypto. And in the early days of teaching this subject, initially it was met with a lot of pessimism. And I think coming from a background where I served in the Air Force, I was in the RAF for 13 years. And when I told people what I did for a career when I was in the RAF, it was met with, oh, nice one, that's great. My dad was in the RAF, or I wanted to be in the military. You know, it's met with a much more favorable response. And then when I decided to take the leap into forming my own business and teaching a subject that already has a little bit of a taboo around it, quite often you're met with you have to build people's trust in this industry before you can talk credibly, and it's an uphill battle. Whereas now it's kind of changing. People are coming to me now and they're asking, Lee, can you teach me about crypto? I don't understand it. Can I do this? And that's what I do full time. I now live in Thailand, and I live on an island called Koh Samui. You may or may not have heard of it. It's actually where the TV series on Netflix, The White Lotus, is filmed there, and it's fantastic. You're probably wondering why I left the UK with the glorious blue skies, warm weather, great political environment, tax-friendly nation. Why would I ever leave? I know it's crazy, right? But I decided to go to sunnier climates. I've been teaching this, as I say, for the last 4 years, full time. I've coached thousands of people now, not all one-to-one, group sessions as well, but I've been teaching many, many people crypto, and I will continue to do that. And it's such a passion. So talking on this webinar is not a job, it's something I really enjoy. And I believe that I am one of the few people in this industry that works with utter integrity, and I'll let you make your own mind up about that. But just be careful in the world of crypto, because there are people out there who are looking to exploit your lack of knowledge. I don't sell you Bitcoin or crypto. I don't do any of that. I teach you so you can make your own mind up, and that's the most important thing. So let's get straight to it. The biggest risk to your wealth is not tenants, voids, or boilers. It's the money system itself. And most people, they don't know this until it's too late. Now, you're well aware, better than me. Just out of curiosity, can you do me a favor? If you, in the chat, can you just tell me, are you a landlord? Are you an investor in property? And also, do you own any crypto already, or are you completely new? Just pop that in the chat. It helps me out because I know where you guys are at, and that will help me shape the rest of this webinar so I know who I'm talking to. Anyone a landlord? Is anyone an investor in property? Jit says he's in both. Marcus owns some crypto. Anyone else in property here? Anyway, assuming that some of you are. Nicola's a landlord and an investor, has no crypto. Brilliant. Own rentals, some crypto. Okay, so you're not completely new to it. There will be people watch this recording who are completely oblivious to crypto, and they're probably watching this this webinar reluctantly. Maybe they got sent it and dragged along. But the reason I say to you, the biggest risk to your wealth is not the tenants, the voids, where people are not paying any rent for months on end. It's not the boiler or anything like that. It's the money system. Now, as I say, you know the rental and the housing market better than me. You know that if your tenants don't pay, that's a problem. You know that if a tenant has a pet and they start chewing the sofa or eating the walls, that's a problem. You know that if the boiler breaks or there's a hole in the roof and there's a leak and you get a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know that's a problem. You've dealt with this yourself. You also know that since we've had our lovely Labour government in the UK, that trying to keep up with the rules and the regs and the policies is impossible. No one really knows. The only thing you can really do realistically is take a step back and go, what is next? And I'm going to talk about a couple of the challenges that you guys are facing at the moment. And again, you'll know this, but sometimes it's helpful to hear it again. And just remember, I'm not here to try and distract you from property. Keep doing that. I'm just showing you a different asset class. That's it. So the risk is not anything to do with property. I think the biggest risk to everyone is the current monetary system. The fact that we earn, I think all of you are in the UK, but it applies everywhere. Our pounds are losing value at a rate that is unprecedented. And the reason that they're losing value is because the government and the central banks are able to print as much currency as they want, and they do. Now, 5 years ago, seems crazy to say 5 years ago, but during COVID times, we had this thing called stimulus or furlough. And what the government were doing is they got the Bank of England to produce much more currency, brought that into circulation, and they brought out these bizarre initiatives like Eat Out to Help Out, and that was to stimulate the economy. Well, as a result of that, the value of your pounds in your wallet or your bank, they buy you less. And what's happening is it's slowly eroding the purchasing power of the currency that you've got. And you don't necessarily notice it. If they're going to charge you an extra 5p for your fuel, or an extra 5 pence when you go to Tesco, you're not going to know. But it adds up. And that inflation is silently robbing you. And they've got some other really crafty ways that they do this as well. That's the biggest concern for me, really. And a lot of people are not aware that this is a problem. I think that you need to be investing in assets that can at least outpace inflation. Now, the inflation rate that you're told, you can find that on the Bank of England website, and we're going to look at that in a second. And you need to be outpacing that. The Bank of England state that the inflation rate is currently 3.8%. I believe it's much higher than that, and you probably do as well, because there's lots of things it doesn't account for. So if that's the case, before you do anything, to even maintain the same standard of life, you have to earn at least 3.8% more this year than you did last year, otherwise you'll suffer. Now, if I look at a bank account or an ISA, I don't know any of them at the moment that are even close to 3.8% a year. And if they are, then you've got lots of terms like your savings are going to be locked away until you're a certain age. It's not a very favourable thing to be investing in. Now, you guys are obviously in property, bricks and mortar, and that's the thing that you feel is the safest. And I would agree that investing in property is safe as houses, as they say. It's a solid investment, and I really like property. I really do. But I really want to get the message out there that investing in crypto is not your enemy, even though you might think it, even though it's probably been portrayed that way. It really isn't. You just have to understand it. So let's move on. So there we go. That's what I took this screenshot probably about 2 hours ago. I don't think the current inflation rate in the Bank of England has changed in that time, but they're saying that it's 3.8%. But it doesn't account for a few things. It doesn't account for things like shrinkflation. Now, the famous example that we use in the UK, and if you're not from the UK, you probably won't have a clue what I'm talking about. Now, my mum always says about wagon wheels. She says, back in the day when I was younger, a wagon wheel used to be like a dinner plate, and now they're tiny. And we see that with with other products. So do me a favor. I need you to imagine something with me. Imagine this. What if you could own an asset that cannot be inflated away? It didn't depend on any government promises or no central bank. You can move your wealth, so all of your wealth, you can move it globally within minutes and you don't have to ask permission from anyone. Wouldn't that be amazing if you could do that? What about if your money just couldn't be frozen? I've had my bank account frozen before. You might have had the same thing. I had that happen to me. What if it couldn't be frozen or blocked? What if you could store millions of pounds securely? You didn't have to carry it in your pocket. You could just memorize it in your head. Didn't have to have anything. These are the things that Bitcoin can do. Now, I'm not a Bitcoin Jehovah's Witness. Like, I'm not here to try and convince you that this is the answer. This is not like do everything you can to sell your children, sell your house, go and buy Bitcoin. It's just a complement to what you're already doing. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll understand what Bitcoin is, how it works, and you'll be able to either change your opinion or at least understand. So this is what we're going to talk about today. Challenges faced by property investors, which you all know better than me, what crypto really is, a little bit of a story about what Bitcoin actually is, how crypto stands up against any other crypto asset. We're going to talk about crypto cycles. Crypto cycles is really important. This isn't just random. I know the price goes up and down, it's highly volatile, but the crypto works in cycles, 4-year cycles. And when you understand how they work, it becomes less volatile and way more predictable. And it's not complex. You might not be familiar looking at crypto charts, and it might seem frightening and maybe a little bit intimidating, but it's not. You just have to know what you're looking for. And it's all about buying at the most opportunistic time, and it's about having a longer term time horizon. You've probably seen these guys on YouTube talking about how they're making these crazy returns in crypto in a couple of days, overnight, millionaires being forged. That's not realistic. You know that, even in property. Yes, you can buy something cheap. Yes, you can do minimal work, maybe fit a new kitchen, paint it, trim the grass out the front, make it look nicer. Of course you could do that and then sell it, but it's not realistic, and it's not a long-term strategy that I would ever endorse. And the long-term Bitcoin crypto cycle, because it always follows Bitcoin, that's the one you need to understand. I'm going to show you why there are so many different cryptocurrencies out there. You've probably heard of more than just Bitcoin. Many of you may hold things like Ethereum and XRP, Solana. You might hold different cryptos. Why are they there? What's the purpose of other cryptos? Why do we need them? At the moment, there are 20 million known cryptos. 20 million. And about 73,000 are created every single day. Most of them achieve nothing. And finally, the last two things. Why are the biggest financial players in the world? Why are they now involved in crypto? Why are BlackRock involved? Why are the US government involved? And how do you get started? If you want to, of course. So the purpose behind this webinar, as I say, I want to bridge the gap. I want you to understand what this is all about. And if you want to get started, how? And by giving you the foundational knowledge, you can make an informed decision. That's really what we want to do. So property then. Now you guys are involved in this. You are obviously big fans of property. It's real after all. It's tangible. It's a physical thing. You can see it. You don't need to trust like digital assets such as Bitcoin. You need to trust because you can't see it. Often people say there's no value in crypto if I can't see or touch it. I would argue actually you can't see or touch. We're on Zoom, aren't we, right now? We're using Zoom. You can't see or touch Zoom. You can use it. It's just code. It's software. Bitcoin's the exact same thing. But housing is obviously favorable because it's tangible, it's real. There's obviously going to be a demand because people always want shelter. And at the moment, we are being told that we have a housing crisis. Now, whether you believe that or not is a different story, but we're being told that. Generational wealth, that's what most people inherit. Real estate. And I would say that the wealthiest families, generational wealth, most of the wealthiest families, they own property and they pass it down. So then we transition and then we talk about crypto. So what even is it? So here's a boring definition of crypto. So cryptocurrency is digital money that uses blockchain technology to operate without central control, relying on a decentralized network of users to verify transactions securely. It provides sound fixed supply alternative to traditional fiat currencies, aiming blah, blah, blah. That's a really boring definition, but that's the official definition of crypto. I think it's way more than that. And I'm going to tell you the story of Bitcoin. And listen, because I find this so fascinating. To appreciate what crypto and Bitcoin really is, you have to understand how flawed the current system that we're using really is. And it's so surprising to me how often I meet people that don't recognize this. Now, there are common misconceptions with crypto. I'll go through these ones. I'll keep it fairly short and sweet because we're going to address some of them in a minute and essentially disprove them. Some of them are true, but most of these are misconceptions. It's only for criminals. Now, initially in the early days, buying and owning and transacting in crypto was very, very difficult. You didn't have Coinbase. You couldn't buy things through Revolut. All you had was access to the dark web, really. You may have heard of something called Silk Road, which was an illegal, it was a black marketplace on the dark web, and people used to buy all kinds of illegal goods and so on from there, and that was accessed through the dark web. And it has this stigma, even to this day, 15 years after the inception of Bitcoin, people still associate it with illegal activities. Oh, it's just for criminals to money launder. Cash is far more used for illegal activities, but side note, we have to use cash. We have to keep it. It's really important that we keep that. Some people say to me, it's too volatile. I don't like the idea of owning an asset that one day could be worth this amount and then the next day it drops 50%, or I don't want to be part of that because I feel like I'm out of control. They say it's a bubble. Now, bubbles burst. Bubbles drop a certain percentage and then they burst. They don't bounce back stronger every single time. If we looked at every time Bitcoin had pulled back and had a strong pullback, even 80%, it doesn't disappear, it doesn't go to zero, it bounces back stronger. This is all part of the 4-year market cycle, and I want to talk to you more in depth about that because I would love you to fully understand what it is, how it works, so that you can exploit this. The smaller returns increase legislation, make it. Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting stance as well. The aggro you have to put up with for the return that you get, especially when you're earning in pounds. If you're a UK landlord, the currency you get paid in is pounds, and we've already said at the beginning that they're becoming worth less and less because the government simply can, the government and central bank can create more, and they do, and it just devalues what you own. But that volatility. The volatility that scares people is the exact reason why I'm so big on this. That volatility is opportunity. Volatility is the cost of being early to a growing asset. Don't look at the volatility as a negative thing. Look at it as your way to buy in at more opportunistic times. If you were look at a house. Let's say you found a house in London. Now, I know that's probably not the most desirable place to buy a piece of real estate in the UK. You might go up north where it's cheaper, where it's more run down, where it's likely going to be spruced up and the price will go up. But let's look at London. If the price of real estate in London continually went up and up and up, you're chasing a moving target that's only going one way. But when you find out that the price drops down, for whatever reason, whether that's a market crash or something like a global event, geopolitical event, and that price goes down, in property, you go, this is brilliant. That house was 800,000 and now it's worth 650,000. It's dropped by this much. Happy days. I'm ready. I can invest in that because overall, the market will go up. But you have those drops along the way. So the volatility shouldn't be too frightening for you. It will be, but education will solve that. Complex and risky. Admittedly, it can be complex. If you don't know what you're doing, anything's complex. And the risk is actually the risk comes from not understanding. So prioritize your learning before you do anything. The first question people ask me when they find out I'm in crypto is, Lee, what coins should I buy? Or what do you think of my portfolio? And my answer is, what do you own and why? They go, I own XRP. It's going to the moon. Why? Because it's going to go up. Why? What does it do? Why will it go up? Because people want it. Why do they want it? And often they don't know the answer. And it's not me giving them a hard time. I'm just saying, if you need to know the answer to this, you wouldn't say to someone, I'm buying this house, it's going to go up in value. And someone says to you, why? And if you couldn't answer that question, then you look a bit silly. So it's your mission as an investor to know why it would go up in value. You heard me say earlier, it's invisible, therefore has no value. It's not true at all. It's untraceable. That's the biggest misconception of all. Bitcoin and crypto is the most traceable thing you could get. It uses blockchain technology. Blockchain is an open ledger. A ledger is just a record of transactions, and it cannot be changed. Everything that happens on there is permanent and it's transparent. I see, who was on the call just then, someone mentioned something. Carla, for example. If Carla gives me her crypto wallet address, which is essentially her bank account details, but for crypto, and she gives me that address, and I decide to send some money to Carla because she's my friend, I go, there you go, Carla, get yourself a drink. That is not anonymous. My wallet address and Carla's wallet address and the amount of money that I sent to Carla in what currency and the date and the time that I sent it is completely visible on the blockchain to everyone. The only thing they don't know is who I am. They'll know my wallet address, but they don't know it's associated to me. But the authorities and the governments, they have technology where they can actually they can track that. So be very mindful if you think crypto is completely anonymous. It isn't. And HMRC, the IRS, they're actively looking right now for people who are either earning lots of money in crypto and not declaring it. You have to know what you're doing. If you want to be cheeky and get around this kind of stuff, then you have to know what you're doing. I can't spend it. Not true. There's crypto debit cards. You can spend crypto on a debit card. I have what's called a Wirex card. I can top it up with USDT, Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever crypto I want. I can go into the coffee shop. I can tap it on the pay terminal. I will pay for it using my crypto. I'm not paying the merchant in crypto. It actually converts to the currency of what they want at the point of sale. Or you can simply sell it and put it back into your bank account. It's absolutely spendable. It's backed by nothing. That's not true either. It's backed by energy, essentially. What is the pound backed by? Tell me in the chat. Your pounds in your wallet, what are they backed by? Tell me in the chat. Or the dollar. What are they backed by? Nothing. Nothing. It used to be, didn't it? In 1971, pre-1971, it used to be backed by gold. Yes, debt. The whole system's built on debt and trust. Trust that whatever you buy today, if you have £100 in your account today, tomorrow it's going to buy you £100 worth of goods. Now that may happen on a daily basis, but over the course of time, it certainly doesn't happen. If you went shopping in Tesco with £100 5 years ago versus today, guess what? You'll have a lot less in your trolley. Why? Is it because the things that you're buying are becoming more exclusive and rare, more valuable? No, it's because your pounds become worth less. It's backed by energy, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. MLM, oh God. Has anyone on this call ever been involved or burned by a crypto MLM project? Anyone? Me too. If someone ever comes to you with an MLM, multi-layered marketing project in crypto, I would run a mile, because I've been burned myself, and lots of people I know have been burned by this. They don't work. You don't need to be buying. Most people are investing in MLM crypto because they are desperate for cash flow. Most people in the UK want cash flow. They don't want to wait 5, 10, 15 years for something, a return. They want cash flow now. So it becomes very appealing. And they masquerade behind the words Bitcoin and crypto and AI and all these terms that are new and exciting. It's not good. So avoid it. And someone said to me last night, because I talk about this all the time. Someone said to me last night, Warren Buffett doesn't buy it, so I don't want to buy it. Warren Buffett is 95 years old. He is very, very good at investing in businesses. That's what he does. He doesn't understand crypto. Everyone who understands Bitcoin, I've not met a single person yet who understands Bitcoin on an intricate level that doesn't own it. Warren Buffett doesn't need to understand it at 95. He's a multi-billionaire. It doesn't make any, it's no benefit for him to understand it. Warren Buffett famously does not invest in technology he doesn't understand. He didn't invest in Apple, Amazon, or Google because he didn't understand it. Just because Warren Buffett doesn't see it as value, it doesn't invest, doesn't mean it doesn't have value. It just means he doesn't understand it. So the Bitcoin story, we'll keep it nice and sweet, short and sweet. Bitcoin was created in 2008 and went public in 2009. And as I said, it was very difficult to obtain it. And it was actually created in response to the financial crash that happened in 2008. Now, I'm 35 and I remember my parents I remember having to move house. We moved into a different house because the mortgage rates went up. They couldn't afford it. So we had to move house. I remember seeing on the news people queuing up outside BlackRock, not BlackRock, Northern Rock. Do you remember that? People queuing up to try and withdraw their cash. And we had this horrible financial crash. You may have seen the film. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it. It's called The Big Short. Anyone seen that film, The Big Short? It's got Brad Pitt, Steve Carell, Ryan Gosling, Margot Robbie, I think, is in it briefly. It's a really, really good film if you've seen it. If you haven't seen it, I don't normally tell people to go on and watch Netflix, but go and watch it. It's a great film. And it really does explain to you what happened in 2008. Now, Satoshi Nakamoto. Satoshi Nakamoto is a made-up name. It's a pseudonym for the person who published the Bitcoin white paper, the creation of Bitcoin. Now, we still don't know who did it. We don't know who created Bitcoin, which seems bizarre. How can we not know who created this amazing technology 15 years ago? But we don't know. And they created it in response to the financial crash, where we didn't have to rely on a government or trust a government. We could literally transact peer-to-peer, me to you, you to somebody else, transfer value across the internet at the speed of data without relying on any government or bank. Now that sounds great to me. I mean, that sounds amazing. Yet people are so skeptical because they don't necessarily know that. We have to understand the problem with the money today. And we've said this before. Governments can print unlimited amount of money, devaluing what we already have. Every time you spend money in your overdraft, or you take out a loan, or you spend on a credit card, you're not borrowing money from a bank. They're creating new money out of that wasn't there before. So every time credit is used, we expand the currency supply and we debase what we already have. And it's built that way. It's built that way by design. So if you save in a bank over a period of time, or you stash your money under your mattress or in a coffee jar, that is not the best way to do it, because all that's going to happen is over the time, it's going to be worth less and less and less. So we have to put it into assets that can outpace the rate of debasement. I'll say that again. We have to have assets that can outpace the rate of currency debasement, aka inflation. Now, I'm sure that makes sense to everyone. Property does outpace inflation for the most part, but what about if your boiler breaks? How many of you have... I'm going to go out on a limb here because I know you'll very quickly tell me if I'm wrong. Let's say you get an annual yield of around 8 to 10%. Is that fair? I'm just looking in the chat. Is that fair? 8 to 10% a year as a yield on property, about average? But then... I'm just waiting for the comment to come through for you to say, no, you're absolutely wrong. And I'm happy to be wrong. If the boiler breaks, the roof breaks, there's a leak or something happens, whatever you have to pay out of pocket to fix that is going to come off of your overall return. So you're kind of hoping that it's plain sailing. It's a bit lower than that, about 6 to 8%. Really? Okay. But we're not, I mean, from a cash flow point of view, I imagine the most compelling reason to do this is so that the return, as long as it pays the mortgage, and as long as it gives you enough room to pay, maybe the housing manager, whether that's like a company that you do, the insurances that you pay, and enough money to stash away in case there's a break in I always use the boiler reason, but and then at the end of the period of the mortgage, you own a house and it hasn't really cost you anything. That's the allure, isn't it? But in terms of cash flow or in terms of return, there's a lot of stuff that you have to put up with as a landlord or as an investor that for me at the moment, I just don't think I want to go down that route. In the future, potentially, yeah. But I'm so excited by the opportunity of crypto right now, and you will be by the end of this. I just know it, because we're getting to the juicy stuff now. Scarcity. How many of you guys know how many dollars are in existence today? How many dollars are in existence? The answer is you don't know, because no one knows, because they're printed every day. As I said, every time you take a loan, every time you spend on your credit card, it creates new currency. So it's constantly expanding. What about gold? How much gold is there in the world? Because gold is known to be a scarce asset. It's been money for 5,000-6,000 years, hasn't it? Gold and silver. Because we know that they're a scarce asset. But what is the limit of gold? Obviously, it's going to run out. At some point, we will mine all of the gold that ever exists. But do we know when we're going to run out of gold? And the answer is no, we don't. We don't know when. We just know that there is a limit, but we don't know what the limit is. We also know there's no limit to fiat currency, pounds and dollars, because the government and central bank, they just keep printing it. So there's no limit. But what we do know with absolute certainty is there is a limit to how much Bitcoin there is and how much there can be. And the answer is 21 million. 21 million is the fixed supply. There cannot be any more than that. And you might go, how do you know? Because Bitcoin is code. It's mathematics. That's it. And you cannot create more than 21 million. And every person has the ability to go and verify this by looking at that code. So unless the entire Bitcoin network, which by the way is the largest and most decentralized network in the whole world, most secure network that there is, unless 51%, which is the majority, isn't it? 51% is a majority. Unless 51% of the whole network that spans the entire globe agree that it would be a good idea to expand the supply to more than 21 million, it won't happen. And why would anyone do that? Because by having a smaller supply and the demand increased, why would you want the supply to get bigger? Because the current way that it operates means that as the demand grows, the price grows. And if you hold Bitcoin, it's in your best interest for the demand to grow. You wouldn't want to expand the supply because it just devalues what you already own. So you're incentivized. That's unbelievable. That's so clever. It's been future-proofed as a result. So it is the only asset in the world that not only has a fixed supply, we know the supply. Can anyone tell me, does anyone know what year the last ever Bitcoin is going to come into existence? Have a guess. It doesn't matter if you're wrong. Have a guess. Just type in what year you think the very last Bitcoin will make its way into circulation. Just 2150. 2050, sorry. It's actually 2140. 21. Unfortunately, I think we're all going to be gone. It's positive, isn't it? We're all going to be gone, but that'll be the last one. 19.9 million Bitcoin are already in circulation. So most of them are already there. I wonder how many Bitcoin have been lost. Because you can't touch them, because you can't see them, if you hold them on a wallet and you lock it away, and it's protected by what's called seed words. These are random words, like a password, but more secure. Now, there was a story of a guy, you might have heard about this. There was a guy in Wales. His girlfriend threw away a hard drive that stored those words on there that accessed his Bitcoin. It'd be worth almost $1 billion today. And she threw it away. And he's been campaigning for ages to try and excavate the dump, like the local recycling centre, to get this hard drive to recover the Bitcoin. Now, he's definitely not the only one, is he? Like, there's definitely more people out there that have done the same thing. You might have even done it. I've certainly come close. And you know what? Maybe I have. Maybe I have lost access on a previous phone. I don't know. There's estimates that 3 to 4 million Bitcoin have gone forever. They'll never come back. And if you pass away without writing down your seed words and having some kind of inheritance protocol, if you've not done that and you pop your clogs and you don't tell your family that you've got Bitcoin, then it's gone as well. And the supply shrinks. And there's very, very well-known billionaires like Michael Saylor who have said, if I die, my Bitcoin is not being handed down to anyone. It's gonna go. And that reduces the supply, and that is his inheritance gift to everyone. Because if you remove $1 billion worth, or a billion Bitcoin, a million Bitcoin from circulation, because he owns so many Bitcoin, if he removes all of them from circulation, everyone else's Bitcoin goes up in price. It cannot just be printed. You cannot just create more Bitcoin. Often, one of the things that people criticize Bitcoin for is it's very energy intensive. Greta Thunberg probably hates this. You know, she's campaigning for the polar bears, and she hates this because it uses lots of energy. And that's one of the drawbacks of Bitcoin. However, is it a drawback, or is it actually one of the things that gives it value? Because it's backed by energy. I can't just bring more Bitcoin into circulation. I have to run a very, very powerful computer that mines Bitcoin. I'm not going to go into the mining because that's for another day. But it mines Bitcoin, it brings it into circulation. You could say that every single piece of Bitcoin that comes into circulation required a certain amount of energy. Energy costs money to bring it into circulation, therefore it has some form of value. And I like to look at it that way. So rather than say it's got no value, I would say it comes into existence because of energy. All the transactions that get validated are 100% accurate. They cannot be changed because of the energy. When you look at a bank is centralized. We have to trust them. Bitcoin is decentralized. We don't have to trust anybody. Every person has a copy of the blockchain who runs what's called a node, which is a computer that validates transactions. And there are hundreds of thousands of these around the world. So we don't have to trust anyone. We just trust the mathematics, and that's it. And today it's becoming one of the most desirable assets in the world, and potentially will be the most desirable. Okay, let's get to the juicy stuff now then. So this chart here, can you see it okay? Because on my screen's big and I'm not sure if you can see this. You don't have to see all of the details, but hopefully you can see there's a chart there. If you can see, yeah, thanks Martin. This is Bitcoin's price measured in dollars, US dollars. So it's showing how many dollars did you have to swap in order to receive one Bitcoin. As you can see, if you look at the chart at the bottom left, and you can see the date right down the bottom, it says 2011. Now, Bitcoin started in 2009, but there's no chart or record there because it wasn't actively traded on exchanges until 2011. So that's why we don't have the data for it there. But all you need to know is it was less than a penny at that stage. So in 2011, you can't see the price that it was because I haven't zoomed in enough on the chart. But what you can see is the price was very, very low for many years, maybe 5-6 years, nothing really happened. And over time, the price, the amount of dollars that you need to swap in order to receive one Bitcoin goes up. So it costs you more dollars to buy the same Bitcoin as time goes on. But one thing to note is the dollar is not a particularly accurate measuring stick. Because as I said at the beginning of this presentation, is the dollar is becoming worth less over time as governments and central banks print more. So what you're doing is you're measuring it in a currency that goes down in value. So is that the best way to measure the price of Bitcoin? I would say you want to measure it in something more stable like gold. And even then, Bitcoin still goes up like this against gold. Now I want to show you something on the next slide because this is a penny drop moment for many people. Remember this slide in your head. Look at that chart. Burn it into your retinas. Have a look. That is Bitcoin priced in dollars. Now look at this. This is the exact same chart but turned upside down. This is now dollars priced in Bitcoin over time. how many dollars does one Bitcoin buy you over time? And the answer is significantly more. In dollars, one Bitcoin is currently worth $110,000. You don't need to buy one whole Bitcoin to get exposure to this asset. So many people think that. I don't have $110,000, so I can't buy it. You don't need to. You can do it with $10. You can buy fractions of it, which is so appealing because you can actually buy a very desirable asset in very low quantities. Looking at this chart here, you can just see how the US dollar is devaluing against something like Bitcoin, can't you? It becomes worth less over time. Now this chart, I've done a little bit of doodling on there. I've placed this chart. It's called a logarithmic chart. And the way it works is it just smooths out the volatility. So it's still the price of Bitcoin in dollars over time, but rather than it being that crazy looking thing like this, where it goes up and then goes back down and goes back up, it smooths it out, but it's the same chart. Now what you can see, if you look at the white line, from the bottom left, there's a white line and it goes all the way up to where the current price is now. Do me a favor, what direction is that chart going in over time? Now, don't worry, I'm not going to be that patronizing and wait for you to say it. Obviously, it's going up over time. The value or the price of Bitcoin over time increases. We know that. But those squiggly lines, the blue lines that go up and down, that's the volatility. So what we have is the white line is showing a secular trend. A secular trend. Look at the internet. At the very beginning of the internet, most people said that it's not going to go anywhere. They're not interested in using the internet. But over time, it became more and more adopted. So it was a secular trend in the positive direction. But within the secular trend, we have cycles. And those cycles line up on a 4-year basis, and we'll look at that in a minute. I look at this as that volatility as opportunity. Every time it pulls back, I buy more. And over time, I increase my holdings of Bitcoin, and it becomes less emotional. I don't need to look at the price every day. I do because of the job that I do, so actually that's a lie. I do need to look at the price every day, but you don't. You don't need to be glued to your phone, and you probably will be, because that's what most people do in the world of crypto, because it's so accessible for such a low investment, you'll be looking at it. But that emotion makes you make silly decisions. But over time, the secular trend is clear. It goes up. Now, this is the Bitcoin 4-year cycle. It works based on 4 things: the halving, the US election cycle, the debt and refinancing cycle, and the business cycle. And they all line up with each other. And I'm going to explain them to you now, how these kind of work. So it takes the guesswork out of this. The halving is an event that happens every 4 years. As you can see below the word halving, it says 2012, 16, 20, 2024, every 4 years. So as I said a few slides ago, the way that Bitcoin comes into circulation is through a process called Bitcoin mining. Now you have to run a very, very powerful computer, and it will run 24/7, doing nothing other than solving extremely pointless but very difficult mathematical equations. And it's racing against other people on the network, and it's racing against them to try and solve this problem. And whoever solves the problem wins a reward, and that reward is a newly issued piece of Bitcoin. So it doesn't just come in drip feed. People have to do the work, and we call it proof of work. Well, every 4 years, the amount of new Bitcoin that you get as a reward for doing this work is cut in half. And it slows down the rate of issuance, and it creates scarcity. So as we said, when I asked you the question, when will the last piece of Bitcoin come into circulation? And the answer is 2140. And that's because every 4 years, the reward that you win for bringing in that new piece of Bitcoin is cut in half, ensuring scarcity and desirability. That also coincides with the US election. So the last halving was in April 2024, just over a year ago. Then in November 2024, Donald Trump was the winner of the election. And then in January 2025, he took office. The year that precedes, so that comes after the halving, is typically the most bullish for crypto. So 2024 was the halving and the election and the business cycle and so on. The year that comes after that is the most bullish for crypto. So 2025, this year, is the most bullish. I shared a status on Facebook today, maybe about 3 hours ago. You know when you go onto Facebook and it says on this day, and you can look at your memories of what you shared. I can't show it on the screen because I wasn't prepared. I didn't even know I did this last year. On the 7th of September 2024, I shared a screenshot of the overall value of the crypto market, and the price of Bitcoin was $54,000. And I said, all you need to do is plug in, understand it, be prepared to wait. There is nothing that returns like this. You just need to do it. Don't look back at this post in a year's time having done nothing about it. And that's what I said. What's the price of Bitcoin today? Double. It's gone up by 100%. And we'll look more closely at that in a moment when we compare Bitcoin to other assets, because this is why you can't ignore it. Even if you don't like the idea of it, even if you're you might cut you open and you bleed property through and through. I'm not saying swap it. I'm just saying I think you should have some understanding and some exposure to crypto. Now this might ruffle a few feathers, because it might seem like I'm really slandering property here. I'm not. I'm really not. I'm just showing you the difference here. Having a look at this here. So the orange line is Bitcoin and the blue line is fiat. If you're not clocked what fiat is, it's pounds, dollars. It's just a currency that we use. So if you look down at the bottom left, in 2015, it's telling you that the average house price, this is in the US. I know we're in the UK, but this is the US because that's typically what we measure Bitcoin in, dollars. The average house price in the US in 2015 was $168,000. So that is how many US dollars you need to give in exchange for a house. In 2025, it's $327,000. That's how many dollars you need in exchange for a house. In 2015, you had to give 530 Bitcoin for the same house. But now, in 2025, although I've made a little mistake at the bottom right, don't tell anyone. 2025, you only need to pay 3.8 Bitcoin. So what does that tell you? It should be glaringly obvious that as Bitcoin appreciates in price, you give less. And that's what's happening. But why is that happening? Why is the cost of the house going up in dollars? Now, you can draw your own conclusion with this. I'm just going to throw a couple of ideas out there, and you can think whatever you think. Is it because there is a shortage of housing? The materials have gone up. Yes, I would agree that's definitely true. Materials have gone up, shortage of housing, desirability, and whatever other reason you can think of as well. Is that the reason? Housing is becoming more desirable, more scarce? Or is it because we're measuring it in a currency that's lost value over the last 10 years, and that's just a reflection that it's now worth 327,000 because in the last 3 years, the US government has printed more currency than it has in the last 30 years and devalued the currency? Is that what we're actually seeing? Between me and you, that's what I think. I think that's what's happening. I think it's a combination, but I think that's having a huge impact. Whereas Bitcoin, because you can't expand the supply apart from through mining, which we all know, and because of the increase in demand for this asset, rather than the value of the Bitcoin decreasing and taking more, the value is increasing and it takes less. So let's compare it to other assets. Now, you might not be able to see this very clearly on your screen. Don't worry, because I'll show you on the next screen, but I'm just going to talk about it here. Now, this is Bitcoin from 2011 to 2025, and it's showing you year over year the annual return. So you can see what the return rate is overall per year. As you can see, if it's green, that means that the price is higher than it was the year previously, and it tells you the percentage increase. If it's red, it was down. Now, we know that crypto works in cycles. So the year after the bull run, so for us, it'll be 2026, is typically the year where we go into a bear market. And we can see that happening right in front of you on that chart. Look at the annualized return in Bitcoin. Forget the overall, because that number's just stupid. If you can't see it, let's have a look here. 141% is the annualized growth rate of Bitcoin between 2011 and 2025. Compare that to the next biggest thing. What is that? The NASDAQ tech stocks. I mean, there's no comparison. Now you might go to, and your comeback maybe, because this is so common, is it because the NASDAQ isn't as volatile, right? The NASDAQ isn't going to drop down by 70, 80%. Bitcoin will. But isn't it hard to ignore that? The rate of 141%. It's really difficult to kind of see past that and go, why am I ignoring this? Why have I not been looking at this in the first place? I mean, look at REITs, that's property, like real estate in the US. That's further down the bottom, trying to look for it. US REITs, 7.6%, which is actually spot on because that's what you guys said, around 7 to 10%. Bitcoin is unbelievable there, but it isn't always going to continue growing at that rate. In fact, it's slowed down slightly already through something what we know as the law of diminishing returns. So let me show you this. Are you familiar with the term CAGR, compound annual growth rate? Is that a word you use in property quite often? So looking at this chart, the black line going up and down is Bitcoin's price, and the orange line is the CAGR, compound annual growth rate. The way you work this out is every 4 years, it will take an average. So it might go, what's the price of Bitcoin in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and then 24, it will publish the CAGR. That's taken an average price. Well, at the moment, we're sat at 23% per year. But 90% of the whole world don't even own Bitcoin yet. So we've got a asset here that's completely undiscovered or unknown or not trusted yet by 90% of the world. It's a global monetary that indexes every single other currency in the world. And the annualized growth rate is 23%. There is no tenants. You're not going to get a phone call at 3 o'clock in the morning. There's no interest rates to worry about or tax rates that are going to change consistently. You don't have to wait for the weekend to sell when the estate agents or the mortgage broker are at work because they have the weekends off. There is no waiting for a buyer. You don't have to wait months or weeks for a potential buyer. You can trade this 24/7 on the open market anywhere in the world and sell it into your local currency. I think that's really, really difficult to ignore. No worries, Martin, no worries. So the CAGR rate of Bitcoin, 23%. Now, is it going to continue at 23% over time? That I don't know. No one does. No one knows what the growth rate, you don't know what the growth rate of housing is going to be, so it wouldn't be fair to me to say that. But what I will say is what we're about to look at now, and the fact that 90% of the world don't actually own this asset, that most of the growth can still occur over time. Now look at this. In fact, it's the next slide. We'll do this now and then we'll move on to the next one. Why are there so many different cryptocurrencies? Has anyone ever asked that question to themselves or wondered that? Has anyone ever thought, why are there so many different cryptos over there? What do they do? What's the point of them? Because there's millions, right? They all try to improve or do something different to what Bitcoin does. Bitcoin was the original, designed as a peer-to-peer cash payment system, completely decentralized. Well, one of the drawbacks, or a couple of the drawbacks of Bitcoin is, first of all, as we said, it uses lots of energy. I can see a positive in that. I'm not like the enemy of Greta Thunberg here, but I can see a positive there. When you back something by energy, it gives it value, even if it does use a lot of energy. And it's actually fairly expensive to transact. It can be expensive to transact. Not always. Depends on what platform you're using. But compared to some other cryptos, it's very, very expensive. So other cryptocurrencies that have seen that and thought, well, maybe we can make it faster than Bitcoin. Maybe we can make it cheaper than Bitcoin. And that's what they've done. But it's actually not accurate to call many of these other coins or tokens cryptocurrencies, because they're not currencies at all. That's actually the wrong term. What they are is businesses, and by owning a portion of the business, it's essentially a stock or a share. And what they do is they give you access to goods, to services, so you can participate in the service that they offer. Many of the new coins are AI driven. You might use ChatGPT yourself. You know you have to pay monthly for it. Well, imagine if OpenAI decided to make their own crypto coin. Spoiler alert, they have. It's called World Liberty Finance. What if you could access ChatGPT by buying WorldCoin. What if you bought WorldCoin and that gave you access to ChatGPT? That's how they work. So it gives you access to services. The trouble is, the reason there's so many cryptos out there now is because they're so easy to create. Literally anyone can create a crypto token in a matter of minutes for next to nothing. Is that a good thing? Maybe good for innovation, but not really. It actually sucks liquidity from the market, in my opinion. So the reason there are so many other crypto coins is because they solve a problem using crypto, and they build on the shortfall of Bitcoin. If you want to invest in the coins other than Bitcoin, I mean, I personally do as well, because many of them are likely to grow and appreciate at a much faster rate than Bitcoin, because they have smaller market caps. They have smaller overall values. Look at Amazon stock. Is Amazon stock going to go up by 10 times in a matter of a year? Probably not. But if you get in a much smaller stock with a smaller market cap that hasn't grown as much, then you can make a bigger return, but it's more risky and it's more volatile. Doesn't mean you should avoid it. It means that you just need to learn and understand what and why. So this is a bit I wanted to talk to you about. Did you guys know this? That these guys are involved now? Larry Fink is the CEO of the largest asset management company in the whole world. You've heard of BlackRock. BlackRock have so much money, they call it assets under management, that if they were a country, their economy would be the third largest in the entire world. Over $10 trillion of assets under management. Now, their CEO, Larry Fink, was very, very negative about crypto in the early days. He didn't believe in it at all. You may have also heard of JP Chase, I'm sure you have, and their CEO is Jamie Dimon, very, very negative about crypto. But the thing that Larry Fink come out and said is that he sees Bitcoin as a hedge against a weakening dollar, which we've already discussed, and he sees it as digital gold. Now that is very, very powerful, and there's a certain element of irony here that these corporations and these companies told you to avoid crypto. You may have avoided it because of what they've said and what you've seen on the media. Yet the reality of what they're doing is very, very different. They've been buying up these crypto coins like Bitcoin long before they endorsed it. And now they are endorsing it. You're now scrambling, oh, okay, I need to buy it because I trust these players. And the opportunity was there beforehand. But because of this, the reason they're involved is because they figured out a way to monetize it in their favor. And they launched a product called an ETF, an exchange traded fund. What you can do is you can buy the asset like Bitcoin by completely dismissing these guys. You don't need to go through these guys whatsoever, because they're going to take a cut, they're going to custody the asset, and you will not have the asset itself. You will have essentially a derivative of it, and you'll have an ETF. Now that's great in terms of protection. You feel protected by these companies. I would advocate for self-custody. I would personally want to have the asset in my own control and secure it. That's me. That's just me. That's what I would prefer. So having a look at some of these other stories then. You've got Trump, the US president, who has been talking about holding Bitcoin on the US balance sheet as a strategic reserve asset. He spoke at the Bitcoin conference in 2024. J.D. Vance, the vice president, spoke at the Bitcoin conference in 2025, saying that America is going to be the most pro-crypto government and most pro-crypto country on earth. You've got JP Morgan saying that Bitcoin price is currently too low and they see a huge upside. And you've also got some new news, which is very relevant to you guys in property. US regulator orders Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, these are big loan providers in America, to consider crypto for mortgages. So what that means is these big lenders are going to take into consideration Bitcoin without you selling it. They're not saying sell your Bitcoin to put it as a deposit. They're going to take, without you selling it, the fact that you own these assets, and they can take that as essentially collateral or proof that you've got these assets worth X amount, and they're really opening up what they consider to be a guarantee that you can afford to make your mortgage repayments, because if you've got hundreds of thousands or millions sat in crypto, they know that if you don't make your payments, then they can take something. Is this going to happen in the UK? Probably not with our current government, but potentially in the future. And I think it's worth knowing and being aware of this, because as property people, especially if you're in the mortgage industry, because I don't know what your background is, you might be an investor or you might actually be on the other side of the fence. This is worth knowing about because it's becoming way more mainstream. If these guys are involved and you're still saying, I don't trust it, it's a bubble, there's no value in there, do you think that these guys would have advocated so hard to become regulated in offering these products by campaigning almost to the SEC in America, that's the Securities Exchange Commission, to be able to offer their customers these products if it was just going to disappear and go to zero? If it was a huge risk? I don't think so. I think we're too big. I think that Bitcoin's gone too far. I don't see how it can possibly go to zero. I don't want to say that it won't, because you can't say that about anything. But I can't see how it's going to go to zero when it's not controlled by any individual. You have to convince the entire network to stop doing what they're doing, and they won't do it because they're incentivized financially to continue doing it. Governments like China have tried to ban it before, it didn't work. And these guys have realized that they can't stop it. Even if they wanted to, they can't stop it. So based on the fact that they can't stop it, what do you do if you can't? You join them. And they've done exactly that. And that is why this is going even bigger and bigger, in my opinion, into the future. I'm not making any claims or guarantees. I'm just saying, in my opinion, this goes higher. So I'm going to give you the final reasons why you might want to consider this as an asset, or even just go away and give it a little bit more thought. Maybe speak to some friends and people that have been dismissive and say, you know what, I learned a little bit more about Bitcoin and crypto today than I ever learned before. And you can say to them, this is a 24/7 market. It doesn't close at weekends. The stock market closes on a Friday. This doesn't. This is 24/7 across every single time zone. There is constant liquidity available for you. You can sell it whenever you want, anywhere in the world. It is instant settlement. I'll tell you a quick story. My wife's American, and in 2019, she moved to the UK. It cost an absolute fortune. Some of you may know about this yourself. You may have had similar experiences. When you come into this country in the UK via the legal channels, it costs a lot of money to do this. And so my wife moved from the US, and she had money in an American bank account, and she needed it over into a UK bank account. Do you think that was an easy process? Because I can tell you now, it was not. It was very, very slow, very costly as well. It cost a lot of money for her to do it. So we had to find a company where we could transfer from an American bank to a UK bank account. It took about 3 days. We had to lock in an exchange rate. Then they took a commission, and the whole thing was just painful. With Bitcoin, it takes about 10 minutes for you to send value across the internet. You could be in Australia and I could be in the UK, and I could send you value across the internet directly to your account. Probably cost me a couple of pounds in transaction fees, but you can do it in another currency. You could do it in XRP, and it will cost you about a penny, and it will be done. It's with that person. There are people in this world that are unbanked. There are countries where they cannot get bank accounts. So they're able to settle transactions and send money across. And I know people that do this, that transfer in Thailand even. They accept Bitcoin. Lots of coffee shops, lots of places around Thailand are accepting Bitcoin, and this is the start of it. Have any of you ever tried to carry more than $10,000 or pounds worth of cash through an airport before? I haven't, but you're not allowed unless you get explicit consent to do it. You're not allowed to carry large amounts of cash. It's very suspicious to them if you do it. Have you ever tried to carry £1 million worth of gold through an airport before? It's very heavy, goes through the scanner. Why have you got all that gold? But you can carry billions of dollars worth in Bitcoin through the airport by carrying a small little device in your pocket or simply remembering your seed words. It is the most portable wealth that there is. The only reason gold, we won't go back to a gold standard, forgetting the fact that it's not beneficial to those up the top, is because it is not very good for instant settlement. If I wanted to pay someone in another country in gold, slow. Think of the shipping, think of the logistics behind it. Bitcoin is scarce by design. Think of this situation. If you knew that in a week's time, all of your dollars and pounds were going to be worth 50% less, what would you do? Would you save it and wait and let it happen, or would you just go out and spend it? Would you just go a bit crazy, spend it on luxury items or buy things with it? What about in a month and it was worth 25% of the overall value when it's almost worthless? And then in 2 months when it becomes worth absolutely nothing, you would not save it. But the same thing is happening on a slightly slower scale with the pound and the dollar. It's becoming worth less and less over time. So you're not incentivized to save in a bank account, because we know that the inflation rate that's stated by the Bank of England is 3.8%. But I think we all agree that it's actually more than that. It's probably more like 10% if we're being honest, because it doesn't even factor in so many things like shrinkflation. So we wouldn't save in a bank account if you know that every year it's going to become worth less and less and buy you less things. So you're encouraged to spend. But with Bitcoin, knowing that the price of it over time goes up, you're actually encouraged to save and become less materialistic, because why would you go and spend it on things you don't need when you know that it's going to become worth more over time? It's such a great design. It's scarce. It's transparent and auditable. We know exactly how many Bitcoin are in circulation. We know every single transaction. We can verify everything. You can't spend what you don't have. You can do that with the pound and the dollar. You can spend an overdraft or a credit card. That's called double spending. That's spending money that isn't existing. How do they facilitate that? Create new currency into existence that never existed before. Double spending. Censorship resistant. Do you remember God, I have to be careful how I say this because you never know who's watching the recording. Do you remember in Canada when the truckers who didn't want, it was all to do with COVID and they were protesting? Well, they had their bank accounts shut down, didn't they, to prevent them from protesting for so long, because they were blocking the motorway and the supply route. Now, you could have an opinion and say, well, I agree, shut them down, they're doing something wrong. Or you may go, no, that's an invasion on privacy, that's an invasion on freedom to protest. Whatever your views are is irrelevant. The point is, everyone should be able to transact and have the freedom to do that. So Bitcoin is censorship resistant. And that was one of the methods that they were using. Anyway, you can read the rest. I'm not going to go through all of this because I'm conscious of time. You can see the various reasons you may want to get involved. And if you want to be involved in this asset class and you feel like this is something that you should probably pay attention to, then you can. You can get involved and you can start so simply. So I've just given you 4 steps. Take it as you wish. I would strongly advise you to focus on education first. There is an abundance of YouTube videos out there and you can do that for free. Some of them are really, really good. Be curious. Don't buy into any coin, because if you were to say to me, Lee, what do you recommend I buy? I would say, what do you think? And if you say, I don't know, I go, well, then that means we just need to learn. That's it. Save your investment for education so that you understand what you're investing in. Because if you bought something and it suddenly went down to zero and you didn't understand why, then you're not going to learn anything. You'll just walk away. So focus on education first. Maybe you want to work with someone who can already teach you. There's people on this call who have worked with me countless times. You know that I do this full-time as a living. I'm just telling you how to do it by yourself. Create yourself a plan. Write it down. Just say, right, before I dive into this, I'm going to create a plan. You wouldn't get involved in property investing without knowing what you're doing. You wouldn't just go and buy a house on auction. Well, maybe you would, but it'd be a bit crazy, right? You wouldn't go to an auction or go onto Rightmove and say, oh, that house is cheap, I'm going to buy that. And then what I'll do is I'll revamp the kitchen and the bathroom, and I'll put a new wooden floor down and paint it, and it will look good. And then I'm going to sell it for, it's 90,000 now. I reckon about 10 grand for refurbishments, and I'll sell it for 120, make 20 grand profit. That's not a plan. You've just made that up. How do you know? Is that a good area? Is that a good price? Or is 90 grand cheap? You understand this, right? The same thing applies in crypto, but people think because it's so easy to get involved in it, and you can go in with very small amounts, that you don't need to. You can just go onto YouTube and just start copying other people. Very, very careful if you do that. But if you have researched and you've got some education under your belt, you've created your plan, I am going to buy 6 coins, I'm going to buy this coin because it does this, and this one because of this, and if it gets to this price, I'm going to sell this percentage. If you've done that and you've got a very clear plan, firstly, emotion goes out the window. You don't look at the price drops and go, oh, it's no good. You don't do that. You go, doesn't matter. I've got a plan, I know what I'm doing. If the price goes up, great. If the price goes down, I'll buy more. That's all you think about. Then it's a case of setting up accounts. Now, what accounts can you set up? Is it available in the UK? We've got the FCA, so some accounts you might not be able to set up. Do you know how to use them? How are you going to protect your portfolio from hacks and scams and all the other stuff that's out there? So you need to protect it. And then we're going to then you need to build a portfolio, like I said. Once you understand, you've got a plan, you've set up your accounts, you've got a wallet, you've got an account on an exchange, and you need to start buying the asset. Ask yourself this: I've listed some coins that I want to own. Is it a good time to buy it right now? Or is the price already too high? Do I need to wait until the price is a more favorable price? Don't buy when the price has suddenly shot up like a rocket and go, oh, I need to get involved. That FOMO is going to get you in trouble. And I can tell you firsthand, it's got me in trouble too. So you want to learn the most opportunistic times to buy, and it coincides with the 4-year cycle. And there are more intricate charts that I could show you, and it makes this such a breeze. It's so obvious when you see it. You think, why would I just randomly buy? I buy when this happens. And this is how I've managed to build my portfolio from when I first started to what it is now, because I learned, because I just invested in my own education. I took it seriously. You may not know this, but you can borrow against your own crypto. You can own Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, whatever you want to own. And you can say, my portfolio is worth this amount today, but I need access to capital or liquidity right now because the boiler's gone. You know, I love that example, don't I? The boiler's gone. It's going to cost me £3,000 or £4,000 to replace this. I'm a landlord. I have an obligation. I've got 10 grand in crypto sat there. It's not really doing anything. Maybe it's going up and down and bouncing around, but I need 4 grand right now. I don't want to sell my crypto. 1, you might incur capital gains tax because you made a profit. And 2, what happens the moment you sell anything? Boom. It goes up. As soon as you sell, it's like it knows it's going to go up. You've lost the appreciation of that asset. But you don't care. Well, you might do, but you go, I need the money. I needed that money right there. I wish I didn't have to sell. I wish I could just keep it and then get the 4 grand. You can. It's a process called leverage. You guys do leverage all the time. You understand collateralization. If you have a house and you have a mortgage on it, but you get valued on the house and it becomes worth more, you have equity, right? That's the word you use, I have equity. Then you remortgage or refinance the house and you use that and you can go and buy another house, or you can use it to go and refurb the house. That's a process you guys do. I know you do that. That is collateralizing your house. That is taking a loan to value, and leveraging what you have. You can do the exact same thing in crypto, and I teach this strategy all the time. It's the most powerful strategy in crypto, and it's how I built my portfolio from starting at $100 to what it is now, and I won't even tell you what that is. Firstly, it's vulgar to divulge it, and secondly, it's a security risk to start telling people what you have or haven't got, because people want to try to scam you. So don't divulge that. However, that strategy is so powerful. And if that's something you find interesting or want to learn about, then the next thing I'm going to share with you is something you might want to listen to. So, guys, that is the end of the actual webinar. So feel free to stick around if you want to. The next thing I'm going to talk to you about, and it's going to take a few minutes, you can ask questions as well, is if you want to work with me and you're new to this, I'm not trying, like I say, I'm not trying to sell to you on this. I'm just going to tell you some methods. If you want to work with me, you can. I've got a brand new program. It's specifically for property investors. You may as well hear it out and listen to it, and you can go, not for me, or you might want to, because I only take 7 people per month. The next slide, I'll show you it. I don't want to distract you with it. I only take 7 people a month because I can't take any more than that, because it's so bespoke. We work together. So rather than doing this on your own, where you watch YouTube, you do the education, and then you try and figure it out, that's fine. But you might make a mistake that costs a lot of money. And unfortunately, I see it all the time when people come to me too late. They've already tried to figure this out, or they've already tried to do it, and they've made an absolute hash out of it. And then they come to me, and I'm like, oh, wish you'd found me beforehand. But you know what? It is what it is, right?